Thanks, babe. Thanks, babes. Thank you. It's my new ring light. I may not know how to behave. Ooh. I low-key, high-key feel like saying, hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel. I know that you guys have all been asking me how I... It's not a product placement reason. No, because you guys will even be scared to just drink tea in the midst of a pandemic. Hish, because I'm trying to finish all my tea for my throat before the live, because reason is just shady. Is that the price tag? Where do you see the price tag here? There's no price tag. Hey, that's home. Hey, reason I'm actually just gonna ignore you. Bye. Bye. Woo, guys, I don't even have time for y'all. Bye. Bye. I don't know if I'm sitting comfortably. Let me just... So I'm just waiting for Tiffany to just log on. Yay, Tiffany's joined. Okay, that's perfect. Hey, guys, let me put my tea away before I get shaded.
Hey! I suck at the internet, guy. Like,
I'm back.
am I back?
Sorry.
Woo, woo. It's okay. The internet's not loyal, fam. Like, it's not.
So we got a ring light today with the little condom, and I even said, I may not know how to act. I may just start a YouTube channel. Do you know what I'm saying?
You just
Stay tuned.
go flex on that. Flex on it.
Yeah, lighting. Yeah, thing. How are you?
I'm good, fam. How are you?
I am good. Yeah. It's that painful feeling when the public holiday is about to end and you realize that tomorrow you have work.
No,
You know that
like
feeling.
my whole life is kind of a public holiday. I didn't know today was a public holiday because guys working from
They're
yourself
on
and working from
levels,
home.
guys.
No, fam, I went on. I was like going on. Like I was like, oh, I have class today. Meanwhile, it's a whole public holiday. Yeah.
What class?
Psychology, critical psychology, guys, because we have to do a thing where we become adults and start a new career at the
Oh,
grand old age
yes.
of 32.
I just started a new career, and you know what? Wow, guys. Adults, they said, be an adult.
Be an adult, please.
What I am grateful for, though, is the ability to, I guess, start over as much as you need to start new things. I think those are like opportunities that I think that our parents didn't have. So I am like, in that respect, I make myself feel better that I'm almost 30 and I just started this new career. I'm like, but it's
No,
fine.
but it's fine. What must we do? We're here to try new things, vibe out.
Yeah,
Whew,
speaking about
yeah.
new things, okay.
Hey!
Guys, this book. You wrote a whole book. How does it feel?
Weird. So weird. Because I wrote it in chunks. Like, because I wrote it in bits and pieces. I'm used to writing articles. So I wrote it in bits and pieces, and I'd write some of it in a bar and some of it in class when things are boring, and some of it, like, during like conferences and things. And then next thing you know, it's like one big document, and I was like, woo! But then, when it's still a PDF, you're like, it's fine. Hey! Then when I saw the physical thing, I was like, what? What? Yeah, no. So I'm still like, no, maybe not. Who knows whether it happened or not? Who knows?
Now you did all that. I am so excited. It gives me great pleasure to introduce tonight's guest. I just want to read her bio because it's all things. Okay. Okay. Tiffany Kagure Mugo is the intoxicatingly scary gatekeeper of HOLAA Africa, a pan-African queer womanist digital community dealing with sex and sexuality. She's a TED speaker, podcast host, and badass board member of Frida Fund, as well as author of the book, A Quirky Quick Guide to Having Great Sex. She's a media consultant and freelance journalist who tackles sex, politics, and other less interesting topics. Once upon a time, she was an Open Society Youth Fellow and now has dreams of studying some new things. Yes. During weekends, she's a wine bar philosopher when Cyril has opened the gates, and a polymath for no pay. And she is also, I just want to emphasize, she's also the author of the book, Quirky Quick Guide to Having Great Sex.
Yay!
Welcome,
good times.
Tiffany.
Thank you.
Mugo.
Like, I'm so pressed that I didn't get to do this the live way, because I used to see all your live events and I'm like, oh, guys, okay, one day me. And now...
Girl, one day you. Why not you? One day you. Okay.
But like now COVID has told me I don't get nice things, but it's fine. It's fine.
I am holding on to hope. I think COVID's made me very like philosophical. So I guess what is delayed is not denied, and we'll be doing this in person soon. So
we will.
Can I please ask you to read Ish, guys? The way I like this book so much. I want you to read from the chapter on sex positivity. It's just about having wild sex. So please read page 13 to 14. Just to give the people a taste of how to have a crazy quick guide to having great sex.
Okay, so sex positive now. An attitude towards human sexuality that regards all consensual sexual practices as fundamentally healthy and pleasurable, encouraging sexual pleasure and experimentation. The sex positive movement also advocates for comprehensive sex education and safe sex as part of its campaign. So, sex positivity is seen as something that is simply wild and sexy or super scary to some. What does it mean that people are actively and openly engaging with sex? The world must be ending, degenerating into an endless orgy no one will ever escape from. This is not true. This is not true. Sex positivity means different things to different people, but comes down to one core concept: having a healthy relationship with sex, no matter what form it comes in. Being sex positive is about helping people have the sex lives that work best for them. When you think about sex positivity, there are a few ideas to understand. Number one, sexuality is vast. There's more to life than being straight or gay. There's so much color and complexity in between. Number two, consent is key. Guys, just like consent, consent. Number three, consent and respect for different identities is the glue that keeps it all together. See, consent twice. And number four, having comprehensive sex education is super important, going well beyond just abstinence and be afraid of sex lessons. Should I finish?
Yes. There are so many things that you say just in those 2 pages, right? That I think are so important and that sets the tone for so much of the work that you do in the book, right? I want to talk about why you wanted to write this book. So like you said, you wrote journal articles, you know, you'd been writing articles, and now you have this whole. So I'm curious about what inspired this book, what made you want to write this book. But also I want to talk about the manner in which this book is written. Right? So this book is written in ways that feel like you're just having a conversation with your friend, and your friend is like, get your life. Why are you being foolish? Or why are you being
Why are you like this?
problematic?
Why are
Are
you
you this
like this?
person, right? And I think that it's so interesting that you've written about sex, right, in the way that you have on this continent.
So, okay, so why I wrote the book, like, it was just a case of like a culmination of like 10 years worth of knowledge, and I've written all sorts of random things everywhere, right? Like podcasts and this and that and this. And it was just a case of like one day. So also, I like things. Like, actually, let me just be real with you. I like things. And I was just like, I feel like I could write a book. I feel like I could put all of these little chunks of things into a book and just have it be somewhere that I don't have to send somebody to this journal article or that journal article or this magazine or that whatever. So, yeah. So now, even with that, I was also thinking about the fact that, you know, how to write this book and how best to write this book. And I want to sit here and be like, no, it was an active choice, writing it like I'm talking to a friend, or like a friend is talking to me. But literally, that is the only way I know how to write. Guys, I've tried to diversify my portfolio. Even sometimes I'm writing academic pieces and I'm like, no, you cannot call somebody a basic bitch in an academic piece. You just can't. You can't call somebody, just be like, don't be a basic bitch. No, you must be
But
like,
why not?
no,
You know, sometimes you're being basic. The person's being basic. Drag them.
Bitch, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So, like, with this, I really wanted something that wasn't scary, because it is a lot of information. Like, it's a thick little thing. And so it is a lot of information. And I just wanted to be like, okay, cool, I can keep reading this. Nothing feels overwhelming. Nothing feels too much. Because if your friend is sitting there for 4 hours with you, telling you that you need to ride dick better, you know, you're gonna take that better than if, like, you know, some professional is like, you know what, when you think about the penis and all of its, you know. So I just wanted people to chill and just engage with the book, and it's never that serious. But it is that serious, but never that serious.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that this book was written. Right, I think that so much of the sex ed that we got at school, for example, relegated sex to the domain of like the scary, frightening thing, where you just get sex education like don't get pregnant, don't get STIs, full stop. Like that is the breadth and the width of the kind of sex education that you get, right? And to have a guide where it's written about, and it's just like a conversation you're having with your friends, was refreshing, right? That this is really, you know, some of the topics here are also very academic, very knowledgeable, but in ways that also make the knowledge accessible. And I love the way that it was written. I was like, there were chapters where I was like, girl, why are you coming for me, you know?
Like, I feel attacked.
I am curious about how your work at HOLAA Africa was set the foundation for the kind of work that you do here, because in many ways HOLAA Africa is a pioneering platform, right? It is this platform that has been pioneering and that has done such amazing work around sexuality on the continent. And so I'm really curious about how some of the things that you've learned on that platform have come into the play in this book.
Okay, so so you know, HOLAA Africa is all about the queers, right? And it focuses a lot on the queers. And weirdly enough, it was doing that work that pushed me beyond my own boundaries. And like because you know, when you're having sex that is outside of the norm, you have to start thinking about it, right? You have to start being like, okay, so I wasn't taught this, so how are we going to do this, right? And so like that work and having to like figure out and chart a path, and also because the queers were messy and I shouldn't be saying this in like real time, like these are conversations for at home, but it's fine. So like there was a lot of the work we did was trying to figure out how to really document and how to give like accessible information about how to have great sex. And then I was just like, the more I talk about it, and then like the more I engage in that work, the more I'd be like, blah. So like yeah, so with doing HOLAA Africa and doing all that work and like having to chart out sex, that I started realizing a lot more that we're all having really messy sex, right? And even like when I was writing this book, a lot of people were like, so is it for queer people or can I bite as well? And like, and I was just like, guys, we're all having messy sex and we all need to figure it out. And like, yes, the quiz helped open my eyes to that, but like, yo, fam, we must all try better. Like, we must just all try better. And like, it gave me all the skills to like write a sex manual, because it's hard, guys. It's hard without it either becoming like super pornographic, which is there's nothing wrong with, or coming off like super like medical and things, where it's sort of like, okay, this is not an anatomy lesson. So yeah, no, at least HOLAA helped, or else this would have been a dumpster fire of a book.
I think that there's something that's important, something that you've spoken about. There's this censoring of like there's this phallocentric approach to sex, right? Like the censoring of like the cis-het male experience, right? And that's punted as though that is like the pinnacle of what great sex is. And so much of the work in this book is to decenter the phallus, right, as this like, this pinnacle of sex. Once the phallus is satisfied, sex must end. That's it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's amazing decentering work that you do in this book, with regards to that, right? And I want you to just speak a little bit about that. And okay, I'm just gonna wait for Tiff. I don't know what's happening. Are you back? Yes. Okay.
Did you go? I never know with these things.
You went. It's 5G in Joburg. We're going through Earth thing, as Zigiso would say. 5G, Joburg 5G.
A mess.
It's a mess. But I'm so curious about the work of decentering the phallus and why it is so important for us to move forward, right, in having conversations about sex, to decenter this experience, right, of the phallus as the pinnacle, as the mounting top that you must ascend.
Yeah, no, like, number one, just basically in terms of sampling new things, you have to decenter the phallus, because like there's only so many things. Yes, there's a good amount of like positions, but there's only so many things. And then it was just also having a lot of conversations and like understanding a lot more, especially what women wanted from sex, and finding out like statistics. Statistics like 65% of women are faking orgasms. I'm like, fam, and heterosexual women, hey, like 65% of heterosexual women are faking orgasms. So me, I used to tell guys, I'm like, look to the left, look to the right. At least two of you are like not centering people. Like, guys, I was just like, no. And like, clearly there was something that was happening that wasn't right? Even though we're like, okay, no, and we're being told by the media everyone's orgasming, it was not the case. And also the more I learned about sex, because God bless, being a queer woman, I just like, you have to diversify your portfolio. And I'm like, guys, it's nice out here. It is nice out here. There are nice things out here. And I felt like everyone... There are nice things, though. Why must I lie? So it's like there's nice things out here, and it was a case of like it's so. No, but like there are nice things. Not always, Shem. Like not always. But I was like, look, outside of just like penis and vagina, there are so many nice things out here, and also pushing a non-phallocentric vibe made it so that people would have to have more conversations as they tried to find more things, if that makes sense.
Yes, I love this conversation around like diversity and diversifying your portfolio. I see also there's comments here about diversify your portfolio. What I found interesting was that you had a TED talk where you spoke about sex and conservativeness, and I think that South Africa is a fake conservative country, right? Like we can tell that South Africans are having sex, really, we can tell, right? But there's also this very conservative attitude in public discourse around sex, which is just strange because we all know y'all are having sex, lots of it, and like we can see, But there's also this like strange conservative attitude around sex and the conversations that have it, and also I guess the ways in which people get shamed, right, around this faux conservativeness. And I want to know what some of the challenges in writing this book were, right? I think of like the attitudes and the conservativeness, and I wonder what some of the challenges in doing the research and writing this book were for you. And I also want you to talk a little bit about that TED Talk. That one.
Oh, that TED Talk.
That TED Talk.
So like that one. That was a weird ass, like, no, yeah, the TED Talk. It was good times. It was good times. But like I think in terms of it was good times. Oh, but like I think with writing this book, one of the things I really wanted to get was, in order to like get as much information as I could into the book and figure out what it was people needed, I needed to know what people needed, right? Because I can't be sitting here thinking that, no, people need this, I'm gonna tell them what they need. No, because I'm not that person, guys. Like I ain't your mama. I'm not here to tell you what you need. Okay, I'm not your mama, right? So one of the things I really wanted to know about was like what people wanted in the book, or like what sort of information people wanted, right? Because there was the basics that I was gonna give, like about giving head, about consent, sex positivity. But I was like, okay, do y'all want to know about sex toys? Have you heard enough about sex toys? And like trying to ask people these things, yo, fam, like pulling teeth. I'm like, guys, who's attacking you? Why are you mad about it? Like, why are you so pressed? Like, why are you so uncomfortable? Like, why are you pressed, fam? Like, why are you so pressed? And I'm like, I'm trying to ask you, like, is this something that you're interested in? Is this something that you're not? Like, what's the vibe? So I think that was one of the biggest things. And weirdly enough, that whole thing of being fake conservative, it is like a continental thing, because even us as Kenyans, we're so fake conservative. We're out here, like, we're always holding national days of prayer. We're doing this. We all want our kids to be pastors. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're all like super drunk by like 7:15 because we don't believe in day drinking as a people. Like, our teen pregnancy rates are off the like, we're just doing a lot of big nonsense, right? So like, that's fake conservative thingness. So I don't even know what you want me to say about the TED Talk. The TED Talk just makes me shy, because I'm like,
people must watch the TED Talk. We'll link them to the TED Talk afterwards. I got you.
You got me. It was good times. I got to go for free trips, and that's all I got to say about that TED Talk.
There's something so important that you speak about, and I love that you also spoke about it in your conversation with Dr. T, right? For people who haven't watched that conversation, go get your life, go and get it. But you speak about consent as a bedrock, right? As a bedrock for pleasure. And there are renewed conversations that we're having around consent. So for the people who've watched Michaela Cole's I May Destroy You, right? The topic of consent is something that also comes up quite strongly. And I want to know from you why consent was at the foremost of the conversation that you're having. I mean, in the page, the 2 pages that you read, consent came up twice. And you're talking about consent as a bedrock for sexual pleasure. And I'm just like, put it on a t-shirt, trademark that. And I want us to talk about that, right? Why do you think of consent as a bedrock for sexual pleasure? Why is the conversation around consent so important when we are discussing sex and sexuality and
so,
sexual
like,
pleasure?
with consent, and sexual pleasure, hey.
Yes.
So I think we always think of consent as simply being the yes and the no, and from there it's like a free-for-all, right? But like, now people are not learning to walk before they run, and I think that's like such, like, it was the deepest, most horrific, most like stressful thing to learn the more I did this work, because like, I came in out the bat being like, let's talk about dildos, let me talk to you about, and then I was like, oh fam, you guys, you're not ready for nice things yet. And like, I think for me, like, the more I did the work, the more I realized that consent and that initial conversation was like the basis for all other conversations. And you needed so many conversations from sex. Like, to have sex, you need so many conversations outside of like yes and no, right? You need conversations of like, okay, cool, so we've done yes and no, we know we're doing the sex, but like, am I gonna stick a finger in your butt or not? Like, and we need to be able to have, like, these are the conversations. You can't just like, no, like, some people, that is their thing, but also that is a conversation you need to have before. So I think with consent is literally just the conversation. It is giving you the initial tools to have really important conversations for like really, really great sex. Because like, now, if you can't even get consent right, how are you going to start asking me how, like, I want to be licked, or where I want to be touched, or if I want like that toy inside me, or if I even want to use this type of lube? Like, you can't even talk. What if I don't like the taste of cherry, and now you've gone and bought like 2 packs of cherry lube? What are we gonna do here with all this lube? Nothing.
A for awkward.
Nothing.
A
A
for
for awkward.
A for awkward. I love what you said
Yeah.
about consent, right? I think that it's such an important conversation to have, and it's one that we need to revisit, right? Because so much of what you're saying is right. It's like so much of sexual pleasure also derives from consent, right? This ability to feel that you can not want to do certain things or do certain things, and that there is space, and there is safety around that, right? Speaking of difficult conversations, Tiff, no, why did you drag? I want everyone to read this book, because I want us to have a public dragging of ourselves, right? About difficult conversations, right? There are difficult conversations around sexual pleasure, particularly when there's that disconnect, right? Like you're saying that so many women don't experience orgasms, for example, right? That so many women are just saying, thanks, but it's like, meh, I ain't calling him again. or
Blocked.
blocked. I gotta block her because whoa, it was bad. But also things around, for example, being armed around safe sex, right? So how do you navigate to safe sex? And I really found that chapter interesting. Like I was reading that, I'm like, yo, and I want us to talk about that because there are so many things that you hear. I mean, even when I was in practice, I'd ask my patients, okay, so when last did you, for example, test whatever the conversation would be, right? Or you'll say, do you use condoms, and then people just like start screaming because that conversation is difficult to have, right? Like people are not armed and they're not ready to have difficult conversations, and I really want to talk about that. Why did you drag all of us and everybody and their granny that chapter?
Hi Sam. No, it was a self-dragging as well. It was a self-dragging as well because like we just want the nice bits about sex, right? We want the nice bits about sex. We want to be able to be sitting there sexting, being like, hey, you like this, I like that, you like this, or even like when we're in bed, we don't want to make things awkward because I feel like there's a lot of ways in which we find sex awkward enough as it is. Despite it being so natural, we're all doing it. We find it awkward enough as it is. And now we don't want to like quote unquote make it more awkward by being like, do you have a condom? And then somebody starts catching feelings being like, do you think I'm dirty? No, fam, do you have a condom? It's like the same way now during COVID. People, if somebody goes out without a mask, we're going to be like, hello? Do you not have a mask?
What is this?
And we'll say why are you like this? And we'll say it with our chest, right? But like now if like we're about to have sex, people are like shy to ask about condoms. And I was like, this is a really important thing to have because you can't just tell people nice things, right? You can't just tell people that, have your orgasms, get your life, this is how you lick, this is how you this, and then not teach people to be like, actually, this is how I navigate safe sex. Because people have gotten really, really good about being shady about safe sex and being like, but I got tested, but I'm on the pill, but I'm on this. Like, we've got all the right answers for not like wearing a condom and not negotiating safe sex and not getting tested. But when it comes to actually being able to say, this is what I want, we don't have the tools. We don't have the tools. And I'm even thinking from my own experience as well. Like, there's bits of this book where I'm like, I'm hollering at like 25-year-old Tiff and I'm like, B? You and me gonna have us a conversation, okay? No, like we're gonna have a conversation.
I love that in that particular chapter you had answers ready for people, right? So because of the ways in which people talk about sexual health almost as a way to shame people, right? Like, no, but me, I'm clean, I'm clean. There's all these conversations around cleanliness as it relates to sexual health that are shaming, right? I love that you had responses ready. So when someone says, you say, okay, they say you got me all the way wrong, right? And I found that to be such an important tool, right? I think that even for younger people reading this, right? I think that there is a language that you give to being able to use in those awkward situations where you're asking somebody and they're saying, yeah, but I'm clean. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? And
why are you coming with that energy here? Like, what is that energy you're bringing?
Yeah. Why did you include the answers? I'm curious about that. Why did you include these like hypothetical situations and then the answers as well.
Because like I think sometimes it's difficult. Like the questions. We all know the statements, right? And we all know what people say. Like we've all joked about it. We're all like, like the guy who's like the condom won't fit. We all know that homie. But like what we don't know is how to like, especially like in the moment, how to like, answer that, right? And a lot of spaces just say, these are the questions you'll be asked, tell them to kick rocks. And also I wanted to include the answers because a lot of spaces tell you to just walk away. If somebody doesn't care about your safe sex, just walk away. But I'm like, look, if you've gotten to the point where you want to see somebody naked, like walking away is not that easy. Like look guys, folks is horny, especially like in a post-lockdown time. It's gonna be lit. It's gonna be lit. Like horny single people are like right at dawn.
For life after COVID.
Babes, life after COVID is lit. But even life during COVID, because there's a sexting chapter. So guys, get your sexting on. But yeah, so like with that, I wanted people to have the answers and to have seen them and had that conversation outside of the bedroom, rather than having to like learn after the fact and being like, having people just tell them, then if he's being like that, then just walk away. If she's being like that, then just walk away. If they're being like that, then just walk away, right? So like I wanted it to be like, okay, so I read the chapter and, even if I don't articulate it properly or whatever, I know the general wording. And I also know that you're scamming me. I know that you are being a scam right now. And so that's why I wanted to have like that entire conversation in the book.
Hey, people are saying life during COVID is lit. You know what? My mother is on this line. I ain't trying to say none but no one. Okay, I ain't trying to say none but no one. I want to talk about lube. Oh my God. I think that the conversation around lube is really important. And I love that you and Tlaleng also have spoken about lube and it's important, right? Because there are all these things around like, hey, guys, people are very invested in other people's private parts. It's so interesting. But there's things there. No, guys, people are very invested. But there's things there about like, I love what you say about how dry sex becomes diseased sex, right? And how people have shady ideas about lube, right? So you only use lube when something is wrong. And wait, speaking, I just want to talk about some of these things. Lube is only for when a penis and a dry vagina come together. This lube, that lube, there is no difference. No, guys, be better. Be better. This is going to help you be better, right? I want to talk about lube. I really want to talk about lube because there are people who have these like interesting ideas about like dry sex, and I think that you wrote so beautifully in this chapter about lube, like I'm just, please take us seriously.
Like I feel like you're a whole advocate. You're like, I'm gonna say lube, don't worry about it. Like
it's like, true. Even in practice, I was always like telling my patients, I was like, do you want lube? I got you. Must I write it up for you, right? Because there's all these things about
like all these misconceptions and things, like when people are like, oh no, you're dry, you're not enjoying it, like, and then people like, I've seen it go to the reason I wanted to include this chapter, because I've seen it go as deep as people being like, you don't like me because you want to use lube. Like, you don't like me. You have actively said that you don't like me. You do not find me attractive. No. Like, and also because of these whole ideas of like, you know how R&B has had us for ages. Like, got me dripping wet, and like now, like you're like, but now R&B has told me since I was like 6 years old that I must be dripping wet, and now I'm not dripping wet. Do I even like this person? And then there's also just so much internal shame, so much collective shame, where it's just like, even if you do get wet, because me, I'm one of those people, like, it's on my thighs, guys. Like, on a good night, it's on my thighs. But I'm like, lube is still a thing. Like, lube is genuinely still a thing. And there ain't no shame in using it. Actually, makes the sex great. Makes the sex great. We advocate for lube on this like takeover. Yes. Lube, number one.
Yes, I'm here for it. I think that, and it's something that you cover in the book as well, right? It's just the idea that people with vaginas, for example, right? That there are things there that, for example, it could be hormonal, it could be that you are not well. You could be taking medication that changes the pH in your vagina. There are so many things that happen, right? And for us to just have such a simple conversation around lube is just problematic, you know. So I think that it was an important conversation to have around lube. Hey, so the comment section is lit on this live. You know, and I also love that, for example, you were saying that lube is not only for when a penis and a dry vagina come together. Like, there are so many instances where you can use lube, you know. And I mean, just even the description of the different types of lube, I think that so much of that is so important for us to move away from the shame and the stigma around lube, you know, and just like hashtag normalize lube use, please. After the pandemic,
Can
you even during the pandemic,
even during, try it out. Like, man solo, just try it out.
Who are flourishing even during the pandemic, you know.
We've seen the comments. It's
so personal, but I thought he was saving himself for marriage, so I don't even know what he's hurt by. But anyway, I can't. Ain't no thing. There's a chapter I want to find here. I made a note. I want to talk about soft serve, enjoying erection-free sex.
Yeah. You must do the thing.
Tell us more.
Tom, like, shout out to Tapua. I should have told him I was doing. Anyway, shout out to Tapua. He wrote this. A whole heterosexual man, guys. A whole heterosexual man. Can all the heterosexual men just be better? Like, because like for him, I think it was really because we were having that conversation came around when we were having like a whole conversation about like penis shaming and erection shaming and how like you must be doing this mandingo thing. You know that thing where they label it on Pornhub, some mandingo things, big black cock, like just it's a mess ouchie, right? It's a mess ouchie, and like how there's so much, like it goes back to like, you know, the conversation we were having about lube, where, you know, if somebody's not hard, then there's so much collective shame. So there's like shame in the person who's not hard, and there's shame like in the person they're sleeping with or the people they're sleeping with. And then, you know, all those conversations you see on TV, no, this doesn't usually happen. No, don't worry about it. And then she goes and tells her girlfriends, oh my gosh, over Chardonnay, do you know what happened to me? Like, so I think this chapter was so important because, like, if we were going to start talking about decentralizing, like, the phallus and, like, not having it be the be all end all, we needed to show also, if you do still want to play with that particular appendage and it is not, like, you know, doing what it's apparently supposed to be doing or whatever, and, like, you know, it's not hard or whatever, what can you do? You can still have fun. The sex can still happen. Like, you know, things can still get lit, guys. They can still get so lit. So we just wanted to be like, look, we're not just like pulling it out of our ass saying like, descend to the phallus. There's so much you can do. Even when the phallus is not hard, here are things you can still do. It is going to be okay. The world has not ended. The sun will rise. It is fine. It is really fine.
Speaking about ass, okay, I just want to talk about the chapter on booty play, okay. I thought that was an interesting chapter. I think that there's a lot of conversation, almost like that actually verges on shaming around anal sex, around booty play, just some problematic conversations that take place. And I think that you wrote that chapter so beautiful. Because I want people to buy the book, man. I don't want to give away too much of that. I'm just saying, okay, just give us the summarized version. The top analysis, I'm having such a good time. Yes, I'm having a good time. Black women are writing about sex. Why must I have a bad time at home?
Like, why must you be pressed though? Why?
It's called a quirky, quick guide to having great sex. Of course, I'm having a good time. Hey,
did you just write rimming? Like, just there in the comments, rimming. Just
guys,
there in the comments.
People don't know what I go through with the Tokonolo, but anyway, it's fine. I can't. Oh my gosh.
So you want me to tell you about the chapter then?
Yeah, I want to know why you felt that chapter was important to include, but also why you chose to go about it in the way that you did, you know. So I mean, you in the chapter you talk about why people may not be keen for anal sex. You talk about the steps for making it awesome, and I think that you do an important thing in the beginning of that chapter as well. Like there's important work that you do in this chapter that I think that often when people have a conversation around anal sex, so much of that important work is missing.
Like I think with anal sex, it's just one of those things. There is, like the way you said, there is a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of jokes around it as well. Like, oh, now, you know, and then, you know, like that whole, like the rural woman who suddenly gets surprised with anal sex. Like there's just a lot of jokes and things around it. But there's also a lot of, it's an up and coming thing. I think it's always been there, but I think a lot more people are being open to it. Especially like, I don't know if you remember on the internet when there was a time when all anyone talked about was eating ass. Right? Everybody's like, Ma, it's a new age. You're telling me to date, like you're telling me to like take a girl out for whatever, but like people eat ass now. Like it's a different world. And I think it was so important to just like have that conversation and have that thing, because also there's that whole stigma of like, you know, it's only for certain people, and you know, if you do it, then you know, like what does it say about you, both as a man and a woman, and like, you know, a gender non-conforming person. There's and also so much mystery around it, right? Because people are like, what is going to happen if I let something in my butt? Like, what is going to happen? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, and I don't think I can take that chance. And I think I wanted, because like a lot of the book is about, I'm not saying in like the book, everything you must do, but I'm like, just read about it, know about it. And if you're keen for it, do it. So I think like that's what I wanted the chapter to do, to be like, know about it, right? Take everything you know about it and throw it out the window and let's just start again, right? Read about it. And if it's something you're keen for, do the thing. Like, do the thing. But don't not do the thing because you're all like, but I bet cheeks and no, like, no. Just don't do that.
I actually, when I was reading that chapter, I thought of Sex Education. Did you watch Sex Education?
Yeah, on Netflix.
Yeah, on Netflix. And then guys, why are these people's names escaping me? But one of the characters wants to have anal sex, but he's like, he doesn't know about the mechanics. He's not sure about what to do. And I'm like, see your life. If you're doing this, this could be you. But
it's like it could be y'all, but you playing. It could be y'all, but you playing.
Someone says you gotta eat the booty like pros. Whoa, Gina Aiko. Okay, I can't go. According to this chapter in the book, she wasn't lying though. According to this chapter in the book, she wasn't lying. I want to talk about. I mean, you've said that you wanted to introduce people to things that they may not have known about, or that they may have felt intimidated about. And for me, I think that the chapter that this was most applicable to was on kink and BDSM, right? And I thought that chapter is so interesting because yes, I knew that there was like a huge kink like community, that there were great conversations happening. I've seen it on Twitter. But I think that there is an important conversation that you have here that broke it down, right? So I may have had my own ideas, because sometimes Google is your friend, but it's not your friend.
It's not your friend. Like, you don't call that honey to pick you up from the club. Not always. No.
And you covered, I think, kink and BDSM so well in this book, right? Why did you feel like this was a chapter that you had to include in the book? Like, what would the book have been missing if you didn't include kink and BDSM? Yeah.
Okay. So with this, like, shout out to Abby. That like, so this book is very squad goals. Hey, like I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 people in this book, right? Other than myself.
A man who was not being problematic, talking about
babes,
sex.
Babes, right? Like, is a whole thing. So I think with this book, so with this chapter, the kink chapter, I was like, it has to be in there, because I realized people will talk about their lives and everyone's a little bit kinky. And I think that's what I asked like them to start with, to be like, just explain. Everybody's a little bit kinky. When you get spanked, that's kinky. When you get your hair pulled, that's kinky. You know, like when they use the necktie to do the thing, that stuff is kinky. Like, it doesn't have to be like some Rihanna, like, you know, BDSM things. Like, everybody a little bit kinky. And I think also just like the growing interests, like myself included, right? So please know, like a lot of the work I do, I'm always just like, I do it for myself, and then I'm like, yo, anybody else want this? No? Okay, cool. So so like even with kink, like over the years, like the last 2-3 years, I've been like reading more about it, finding out more about it. And so like with this, like I also realized how like, you know, interested people are, but like again, like with the anal play, they're like, I don't know what's going on. So like for it, I was just like, this is another thing. Here, read about it, take everything you want, like you know about it, and throw it out the window, including 50 Shades of Grey, because that's trash. 50 Shades are nasty. 50 Shades are problematic, right? So I just wanted people to like read and be like, cool, babes.
So what
But like
what was your biggest takeaway in writing the chapter on kink and BDSM, and what do you hope that people who are curious will take away from that chapter?
So because I didn't actually write the chapter. Yes, fam, that. no, I kid, not that. So I only like helped Abby like edit the chapter and bring it all together. But like what I really wanted people to like understand is, I think the most important thing was to like take away the mystique of kink and like let people know that there's so much to be learned from kink, because kink breaks down sexual experiences. Like kink has not come to play. The rest of us are just out here doing a thing, but kink has not come to play. And I wanted people to understand that, like, even if you didn't become a kinkster, take away like the basics of kink, where people are like, these are my limits, this is what I want to do, these are the traumas I'm bringing to this thing, this is the diverse portfolio of things we can do. Like, just the tools of kink, I think, are super important. So even I would recommend reading the chapter on kink, even if you don't want to become a kinkster, because the things you can learn from kink, right? Just like about consent, about finding out about people's lives, about like, you know, even just like planning your sex. Because people always think that, planning your sex is a nonsense. But like now, if you planned your sex, you could get through a lot more of the things you want. And also like articulating your fantasies. I think that is like such an incredible thing within kink, where you have to like, articulate and name your fantasies, rather than being sitting there afterwards and being like, wow, I completely missed my clitoris. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this content. I don't.
This is content we are here for. Huh? Content I'm here for. I would love to also just speak, guys. When I say that Tiffany dropped lines, I just want to read. Yamo has to bear with me. But there is something that you say in chapter 26, okay, that so many people must bookmark and save for when they check themselves before they wreck themselves and other people. Where you say the friend zone, people are not sex vending machines. Put this on a t-shirt too. People can be friends without wanting to have sex, because friendship is important, right? Hey, people are not sexual vending zones simply because you could possibly sleep with them. There are some friends you should just leave alone. Being nice to someone does not mean you deserve to have sex with them. Annie, shut the front door. Shut the front door.
Bruh.
What do you mean?
But people are out here.
Are not sex vending machines.
They're not.
What do you mean?
They're not, because like people are out here playing the long con, and I always call it the long con, hey? Where you're like, here you meet somebody and you're friends with them for like 3 years, and then one day you slide into the DMs, and then when they're like, no, you're pressed, and you're like, what did you think was gonna happen? That if you just put friendship coins in, sex must fall out. So I'm like, I think, and that's also, it's just like, all jokes aside, there is something like really problematic about it, because you're not being open with your intentions. You're like, it's almost borderline emotional manipulation, where you're like, I will, instead of just coming up to you and being like, look, I really like you, and if the person's like, no, respecting their autonomy and respecting their boundaries, no, you're like, look, I'm going to convince you that you like me. I'm a grown adult. And if I'm not of consenting age, keep it moving. And if I am, no, I'm a grown adult. And no. You must not bring the long con here. In 2020, no, fam. No. It's the long con.
I love, I just want to find, I love what you said, because I had a moment with this book. Just give me, because people are messy and people are nasty and people just need to stop. Like, your friends are not vending zones. Hey, because yeah, where you said sex is lovely, but there are other lovely things. The idea that we must constantly pursue sex makes it sometimes hard to form other more beautiful connections. It is not the be all and end all. Yes, that's funny considering you're reading this book. There are many types of connections out there: emotional, intellectual, spiritual. Sex can come and go, but other connections can be forever.
Yeah. Don't play yourself. Don't play yourself trying to get some pussy, guys. Just don't play yourself. Don't.
So this conversation, I could talk about this book forever and ever and ever. Unfortunately, Instagram is just jealous. This is why we need our own platform where we can just talk about a quirky, quick guide to sex, to having great sex forever, ever, 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 ever. It's fun. I'm seeing in
It's fine.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I think a lot of people have enjoyed this conversation. I think that, you know, the way that you've written about sex in this book is necessary. It's beautiful, right? It was for example, for me, it was being a cishet woman, right? And reading this book and being like, kink, okay, polyamory, because you see topics trending, right? But you realize that you're sometimes not armed with the correct information, right? So you're seeing people just tweeting and saying things, but polyamory, but you're not armed, right? Because people are just speaking from a place of ignorance. And there's something so beautiful about reading the kind of book that makes you want to decenter the fellas, for example, right? That's monumental, that you read a book and you're like, decenter this thing, decolonize your sexual thinking, you know? And I really enjoyed the kind of work that you did in this book. I think that this book is so beautifully written. I love that you challenged our ideas on sex positivity. I love the idea that you challenged us to think about consent, right? To think about what it means to have consent as a bedrock. Do you know what I'm saying? I want that on a t-shirt. As a bedrock for sexual pleasure. Which was absolutely amazing. We have copies of this, signed copies. Guys, don't even say the cheeky natives don't put you on, okay? Don't ever say the cheeky natives did not put you on, okay? We have signed copies of this book. Because I mean, we've just touched the surface, but that's enough. Go buy the book. That's enough. We touched the surface. Go buy the book and go check yourself before you wreck yourself. We have signed copies of this book available from the Cheeky Merchants. Please DM the Tlokonolo. The Tlokonolo, bye Felicia. Okay, bye. We have signed copies of this book, which will be available. Please DM the Tlokonolo. But I just want to close off with some thoughts from you, right, about what you hope that people will take away from this book and what you hope that this book will do. Yeah, someone's saying go buy the book. It's amazing. Facts.
Go do the things.
All facts.
So I think with this book, I just really want people to understand that sex is really diverse and it's not scary. The diversity is not scary, right? Yeah. That if you just sit with it and be comfortable with what you want to be comfortable with and take what you want to take, like, it'll be fine. You don't have to do everything. You don't even have to do anything. Just take what you want to take. Or you could do everything. Do the whole damn book. Do the whole book. But like, I think for me, it's a case of like, take what you need to take from this. And I hope that the book constantly encourages you to like, if you don't want to like get into polyamory or kink or, you know, anal play or whatever, don't do it. And if you do it. Just have fun. Also, it's never that serious. Nah.
That reminds me. One more question before Instagram kicks us out. What is the best sex advice you have ever been given, and what is the best sex advice you have given in 3 minutes?
In 3 minutes, that's a lot of things. The best sex advice that I have ever been given is literally relax. It is never that serious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, and that is the best sex advice I've also given, because I'm like, once you relax and you stop putting so much pressure on everything, you can have so much more control, right? And you can just be able to like stand on your own 2 feet and not be like, oh my gosh, what if they think I'm this, or what if they think I'm that? And look, it's never that serious. It's never that serious. Just relax. Sex is be easy. It's okay. It's okay.
What's the best advice you've given? This advice that you look back on and you're like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah. No. You see, now this would be the perfect time to flex on like some real wisdom. And now all of a sudden my mind is blank. I'm like, have I even ever spoken about
There's
it?
a whole book of wisdom.
I know. Like, this is the best advice I've ever given. Does that count? Oh my gosh. I think the best advice I've ever given is communicate, and try and communicate through the hard bits, right? Like, at the end of the day, communication, guys. It'll save your life. It'll actually literally save your life. Yeah. But
buzz on buzz. I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I will be getting this book as gifts for some people that I know. And just like, when you read a book and you're like, I must buy this book for my friend. That is like the highest honor, I think, and I really enjoyed this book. Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me.
DM the top of the slide in his DMs for signed copies. Guys, signed copies of this book. But how can people get hold of you? So to just tell you how much they've loved your book, how much they've learned from your book, how do people get hold of you?
So there's my Instagram. I don't know if I don't know how this works, but like my Instagram is really a great way to do it. But then also the book has its own Instagram account, because it's a whole adult, called Quirky Quick Guide. So just the first part. So and I put all sorts of weird nonsense on there, and videos and little posters, and just like continuing on the conversation. So those are always the best ways. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. This has been amazing. I really appreciate this conversation and this amazing book. And I am so excited to announce that on Saturday we have Morgan Parker, who wrote she's just written so many amazing things. An amazing prolific poet, Black Girl Magic, Earthbang. So we'll see you guys all on Saturday. Thank you so much. Definitely tweet about this, buy the book, do Earthbang. Bye, y'all.